All right, everybody, welcome back to PittsburghSportsReport.com and EllisCannon.com, coming at you from the Dallas Sheraton, downtown Dallas, where it's still snowing and getting a lot of attention for it. We're, of course, at the NFL Media Center. We've been at it all week long. Joining us right now is a man who's legendary in the National Football League, NFL super agent, and somebody who's watched this growth and been a very integral part of it through the years, Leigh Steinberg. Leigh, you signed our Pittsburgh Sports Report, which we're doing with our guests with Show Me the Money, okay? I know that's no accident. You've shown a lot of people how to get money in this league.
Well, tomorrow at our Super Bowl party, we're doing a reunion of Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to have Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding and Jay Moore, Regina King, Jerry O'Connell all getting together because it'll be my 25th annual party.
That's unbelievable, and we know it's a spectacular. I want to ask you about what you see when you look around, and just. You've always been a philosophical guy. You've been very thoughtful in joining me on the air in Pittsburgh a couple of different times on various issues. But this is my fourth only, but it's getting bigger by the second. We have reality stars going around, comedians. Everybody wants a part of this. Wasn't always like that. Talk about the growth from your perception.
This has now become a convention of Americana where big business, big politics, big entertainment, and big sports come together. This is almost our national convention. And you have football going from a point where in 1976, the two teams that came into the league, Tampa Bay and Seattle, cost $16.5 million. This year, the average team is worth $1 billion. You have television that had 3 networks competing against each other. Now there are 200 stations. And teams that got $2 million for the TV rights nationally get $130 million. This is a brave new world, and this sport dominates the way no sport league ever has before. Part of the reason for that is it had uninterrupted play since 1987. Since 1987, the games are played. That means that all the energy, unlike baseball, basketball, and hockey, has gone into developing the NFL Network, fantasy football, all sorts of different ways to enjoy the sport. And it is by 2-1 the most popular sport in the country. Ratings off the map. The Pittsburgh game against the Jets had almost 60 million people watching it. And then that's just in America. So you look around at Radio Row, it was Radio R, no O and W,
right.
But all of a sudden it's stunning what's happened here. You can have multiple platforms. You can enjoy sports over a television, over a cell phone, over the internet, over your computer. There's no end to the way the content flows.
That's a wonderful point, and I want to talk to you about the potential looming lockout in a moment, but what strikes me more now than even several years ago is that you don't have to be an established newspaper in the sense of a traditional long-term deal, or for that matter, radio or television. This is the busiest corner that I've seen and I've been part of, and we're, zooming out all over the world. There's Yahoo Sports, there's Fan House, there's people that don't make up traditional networks, but they're all part of it. The NFL's driven that technology, arguably. People like me benefit from it.
What happens is that for my son, who's 24, he doesn't read a daily newspaper. His life is through that computer screen. And that's the way he gets his information, that and his cell phone.
Right.
So for a whole generation, this new media is the way that they relate to the world. And the NFL has been astute enough to not fight that trend, but to plug right into it and be on the forefront of it.
That's a great point. I want to ask you about the lockout. Are we going to have a lockout? There's so much money flowing, as you said, that would seemingly be a driving force to keep everybody engaged, but it also looks, at least publicly, that they're sparring pretty significantly. What's your take?
I think you need to remember that in football, in the NFL, there's a long-established tradition of never doing anything until the pressure is there. If there's no reason to do a business deal, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to sign their first-round draft pick. They're going to sign him when he's going to start to miss training camp, and that's the way business is done. Now, maybe it'd be better if it was done another way, but that's so that March 4th is not a real deadline. It's a deadline that has some resonance legally, but the point is when you start missing football games and you start missing training camp, that's when football will react. And so I don't think the public is going to respond very well to millionaires fighting billionaires.
Right. Yeah, never.
This is a tough economic time. This sport is rolling in money. Some of the issues are not even economic. There's no reason to have an 18-game season. The quality of football will be hurt. More players will get injured. You'll be looking at second-string backup players who will decide certain races. If teams in the 17th and 18th game have already clinched, you know what they'll do? They'll rest their frontline players. You know what the games will look like? They'll look like the third and fourth preseason games. So it'll be no different anyway. So my point is that all of these issues can be worked out, but they should be worked out quietly. This is full of sound and fury, signifying not a whole lot.
I agree. Last moment or two, and we'll let you fly. You mentioned about the computers. I teach the only academy in the United States, sports media and broadcasting, to high school students, the PA Cyber Charter School. And we're teaching high school kids how to be part of all this. It's our sponsor here this week. And one of the things we often talk to them about is what you mentioned, the collaboration of all of the different forces that bring people together for this national convention. But we also see a convergence, if you will, of all the different media that comes together. No one really is in one particular discipline right now. It's quite varied. If you don't mind commenting on what your perception of that is, perhaps for the students. And second of all, you know a lot of players, you've represented players for these organizations, you know them quite well. Just a game thought as well. But first on the education front.
Well, first of all, I think that when people come to me and talk about wanting to be an agent or being in the sports business, my first thing I say is conceptualize the sports business broadly. Think of sports media. Think of sports television. Think of everywhere that sports content can flow. Every way that you can receive sports content, whether it's your mobile phone, whether it's your computer, whether it's a television monitor, however it can flow, you should think of that as a way to display content. And if I was a young person today, that's where opportunity and growth is. You're teaching them about jobs that don't even exist yet, and some technology that hasn't even been developed yet. So all of a sudden someone comes up with an application that takes that computer screen and says, well, you know, we'll run your fantasy league stats down one side, you'll have it your way, and then on the bottom, if you're an alum of the University of Pittsburgh, we'll have you 5 other alums and you can talk trash to each other while that game's going on. And we'll do this and this and this, have it your way. I mean, ultimately, I think we'll end up with wiring into people's brains or caps they wear that'll give them the thought of getting hit. So I think that ultimately is where it's going. So I think students have to prepare themselves for the fact that new technologies and new convergences are going to happen that we can't particularly anticipate yet because it moves so fast. Now, in terms of the game, as you know, for a lot of his career, I represented Ben Roethlisberger, and I think that Green Bay's on a hot roll. They're very, very hot. Aaron Rodgers is very hot, so it wouldn't surprise me if they won. But if I'm picking, I'm going to pick Pittsburgh because Troy Polamalu is the Tasmanian Devil. Nolan Harrison is hell on wheels. I think it's tight. Maybe it even comes down to the last drive. But when it comes down, I'm going to bet on Ben having the ball in his hands and doing just what they did the last time they were in the Super Bowl. I think they win, by a score.
All right. Thanks so much, Leigh, for all your input. Very gracious with your time and analysis. It's always a privilege to talk to you, and thanks for being with me today.
My pleasure.
Okay, Leigh Steinberg, NFL super agent, and, of course, a major force in the National Football League, right here at PittsburghSportsReport.com.